Hello there everyone, uxwbill here once again with a computer video, albeit a computer video shot in a rather unusual location. Why is it that I would shoot a computer video outdoors?
We don't know!
Well, I've done it a couple times in the past for various reasons, but right now I just haven't happened to bring these particular machines in, and well, I could always use more of the sunshine vitamin D, something that a lot of computer geeks don't have a lot of, unless they happen to own a laptop and take it outside. Well, you see, I recently went, it was the passage of 1 year once again, and I went to the Hamfest the other day and picked up a couple of computers. Here's one of them right now. I have not tried to power this machine on. It is an OptiPlex GX620. It was priced at the princely sum of $5 United States. There's a reason for that. As you can see, it has a post-it note on it with a diagnosis. A very interesting diagnosis. Does not boot, only growls. I think it will be very interesting to plug this machine in and see what it does. It is suspiciously clean for one of these Dell OptiPlex small form factor machines. I think there was actually one a step smaller than this that used a laptop style power supply. But as you can see, where dust usually builds up in here, there's a little bit right there. But by and large, this machine is so clean. Either someone cleaned it up, or maybe it was troublesome from the get-go and it just got shelved. That's something that sometimes happens with laptops. I've often said to people who want to buy a used laptop, well, first you need to have your head examined. Secondly, if you're going to buy a used laptop, it's oftentimes a better bet to pick the ones that look like they've had some use as opposed to the ones that look brand new, because the ones that look brand new might very well have been shelved early on in their life because they had some odd problems. Now, there's really nothing wrong with this machine that I can see, no gross signs of malfunction. However, if I pivot the hard drive out of the way, you can see that we have 4 capacitors here, all of them Rubicon units, that are really not worth having. And I suspect that if this machine does in fact have a problem, it's probably with those capacitors, though unless it's shorting out the power supply or making something on the motherboard hit its current limit, I really cannot fathom why that would make it growl. Let's see, can I get that to actually go back shut there? Sometimes I have to have 2 hands to do that. I'll get to the rest of the computers that I picked up at the Hamfest, but first, my dad picked up a computer as well from a garage sale. This just so happens to be something that he saw, priced at $20 for both of these pieces, one of which is a Samsung SyncMaster 923NW. I have no idea if that flat panel display works or not. The computer that it was paired with is some sort of an AMD-based machine. I would guess either a Duron or an Athlon. Socket 462, as the legend on the motherboard helpfully tells us. Has a dedicated video card in place. Has a wireless network adapter and a header style connector coming off the motherboard and going to a slot bracket for 2 additional USB ports. 2 gigabytes of DDR memory, a VIA chipset of some kind or another, and a 160 gigabyte Western Digital hard drive. They wanted $20 for this. My dad offered them 10. They accepted 12 for both pieces. It's just unbelievable how cheaply you can buy a computer if you play your cards right. Oh, and my mother is none too enthused about that, as you may have heard in the background. At first I thought this motherboard had a television output on it, as you can see right here, although the I/O shield clearly says that is an SPDIF output, and as you can see, there is no onboard video on this motherboard, so it wouldn't make much sense for that to be a television output. But the video card itself has a S-video out, as well as a composite output, and then of course here's the other side of the wireless network adapter, which is from D-Link. I'm not really that fond of these things. I've never found them to work all that well, and the thing that aggravates me the most about them is they don't start their network link up. At least they don't on versions of Windows as recent as XP. I don't know about Vista and later. They don't start their network link until somebody has signed in and the computer is at the desktop, which means if you want to do some remote management when nobody is signed on to the computer, these things oftentimes don't have their link up, and of course their proximity to the back of the computer case also tends to attenuate their signal strength greatly, unless of course your access point is physically behind wherever the computer might be. So I much prefer to use something like a like an outboard an outboard wireless access point of some type. A client bridge is what I mean to say. So that's pretty much everything I can think of to say about these two pieces. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the other things I picked up. They're all definitely from the scratch and dent section, but last year I bought that Dell OptiPlex 745 series machine for $1, stripped of many of its parts, and I discovered that all in the world it needed to be functional again was to have the video card reseated. And I wonder if I might not get it lucky with these. At least I hope I do, because instead of paying $1 for them, I paid $10 for each one, so my expectations are naturally higher. Now, before I go ahead and talk about some of the things that I picked up at the Hamfest, I would like to take a moment to explain just exactly what a Hamfest is. As the last time I made a video about this, a number of people inquired, well, what is a Hamfest? A Hamfest is quite simply a gathering of people who are interested in ham or amateur radio operation, either as active operators or interested hobbyists and enthusiasts. However, there's quite a bit more to them than that. I am personally not a ham radio operator, though I have friends who are, and they are in fact the people who introduced me to this particular Hamfest, which is the Peoria Area Amateur Radio Club's Superfest. At a place like a Hamfest, not only will you obviously find all kinds of equipment pertaining to radio, both ham and otherwise, you will frequently also find flea markets containing every manner of electronic device you can imagine. From television sets to personal computers, radio stuff, just all kinds of different things. And that's what brings me to a place like that, is the possibility of finding interesting computer stuff to play with. I definitely found some interesting things this year. First thing well, it wasn't the first thing I found, but it's the first thing that I happened to grab out of the back of the wagon here, is a Pentium Overdrive upgrade microprocessor. I was hopeful that this might be the version for upgrading a 486 computer, but as you can see, this is actually intended for Socket 7 Pentium systems, since it offers the MMX technology, which was obviously never made available on the 486 style Pentium Overdrive upgrade. Still, for $1 and brand new in the sealed package, you can't beat it. It'll make a nice upgrade for something around here. It's possible to drop those in and use them on almost any system with a Socket 7 microprocessor. The IBM PS2 did offer Socket 7 Pentium microprocessors toward the end of its life, but as it happens, these upgrades are not a drop-in upgrade because you actually have to make a modification to the processor card, or complex as it's more correctly known, in order for the fan to operate. If the fan on these does not operate, they will downclock in order to protect themselves. This red thing right here that says exit on it, well, I didn't pay $10 for it, but I paid more than I would have liked. It says enter on the other side, has a light bulb inside it, a tubular style bulb, which is actually what General Electric calls those, right on the packaging themselves. So talk about not only an awesome product name, but also a very accurate description. This was nothing more than a case of frivolity on my part, and for those of you who are familiar with my live streaming activities, you can probably guess where that thing is going to turn up. Now, there are a number of people there who sell computers, but the group that I frequent is a group that's been there for as long as I can remember, and they used to have a very prominent location, but this year something went wrong. They ended up moving backwards further into the show, but I was glad to see they were still there, because not only do they have interesting stuff, but they're also willing to make a deal on it when they get tired of looking at it. And I love going around and making deals. Not quite as much as Bizarre Furhead does. I brought him with me, and I'll tell you what, Furhead's fearless. I don't think I have to explain that to most of you, though. He'd go around and he'd make offers on stuff that I wouldn't do because I'd think I might offend somebody, you know. So let's see what we've got here. This is a SMC Easy Hub 10100. This is not from the group of people that I'm talking about who sold me the computers and some of the other stuff in here. But if I was willing to purchase this for $5, and I figure, you know, every now and again you can still use a fast Ethernet hub, they would throw in for free 2 parallel ATA optical drives, in this case Hewlett-Packard branded, so probably out of some kind of a, I would guess a business line machine like a rebadged Deskpro or Evo series system, something like that probably. CDRW and DVD reader, and it just so happens I can always use those. There were electronics recycling bins set up around the place. Now this is an ESD handling regulation compliant surface right here, I'm sure of it. And people could dump off stuff in there that they didn't want to bring home with them, sellers, things like that. I saw a lot of computer CRTs getting dumped in there, and unfortunately one Sony Trinitron television. I don't know if that's a burn mark or somebody's effort at retouching a solder joint on that or what that might be. I know that these are parallel ATA to USB 2.0 bridge boards, and they have a bus link marked IC on them that says USB IDE-D. I'm not quite sure what these were originally a part of. Got a 3.5-inch hard drive right here, and if I put that into place on the board, you can see that it's quite a bit larger. Well, it's just a little bit larger on the side, and the screw holes don't quite line up with the ones that would be present on a hard drive. And yet if you try to put an optical drive on there, not only do the screw holes not line up either, but it too is also too large to fit. I have no idea if either one of these boards work. The burn mark on the one makes me a little bit suspicious. The other one doesn't seem to have any such marks on it. And I don't know, I'll have to try these out and just see what happens with them. They might be useful for some project or another. Got a set of twist lock plugs here, which will undoubtedly come in handy for use here in the garage. These were 50 cents a piece. You can't hardly beat that. Going back to the guys who have the computer stuff, the big presentation of it, got a 20 gigabyte hard drive for $1, a USB numeric keypad that looks to have a built-in calculator function, even has a neat retractable USB cable on it. I'll bet this thing was not cheap when it was new. And then apparently a sweepstakes item. Could not get it to work, $1, try your luck. I figured, why the heck not? You know, a USB 3.0 PCI Express card? Why the heck not? If I could get that to work, it might just be worth it. They had two Ethernet switches. This one from TrendNet, which is a gigabit capable unit, not only on all the normal client ports, but also the uplinks over here. I believe I'm correct in saying that. And this thing looks to be in pretty good shape, looks to be pretty clean, but they told me that most all the switches they had were probably flaky in some way or another, and that's why they were taken out of service. They definitely marked off one of the ports with this thing with an X, so I'm guessing that at least one of the ports on this does not work. Over here, and in a little bit better condition, is an SMC 24-port easy switch, 10100 only. Looks to be in exceptional condition, but again, they say if it's a switch, probably doesn't work quite right. Then, I discovered this, an uninterruptible, or more accurately, standby power supply. Not your typical APC or trip light unit though. This is an Eaton PowerMate 5110. As it says on top, it will not power on. I think the cause for this is pretty straightforward. It simply seems that the batteries are completely fried. In fact, the cases on them are bulged, and the top of one of them is slightly melted. Now that might sound fairly alarming, and it might make you wonder if the charging circuit in this thing is working properly, but I think it can be safely said that it's worth a shot at least to see if it'll come to life with some good batteries. It's not all that uncommon for the charging circuits in these to do bizarre things when the batteries go bad, and the batteries that are in here seem to have been the factory originals, and given that this thing seems to be somewhere around 7 years old by my guess, I'd say it's probably time for a new set of batteries. Now at first I thought I bought 4 of these, but apparently there are only 3 of them. These are various Dell OptiPlex systems in varying states of disrepair. This one in particular is practically almost a shell. There's no power supply. I don't believe there's any memory modules in here, no hard drive. In fact, I think the only thing this has got besides a CPU and the motherboard is the optical and floppy drives. So this might very well end up being a parts machine. It says Amber 3.4 error, memory power fail. I'm not quite sure what that means. Go ahead and take a look at it. This is by far and away the dirtiest machine of the bunch inside. See, there's quite a lot of dust in here. No memory modules, no hard drive. At least they left me one of the mounting brackets for that. Got the little business audio speaker there in the front end. And of course a positively kicking computer fan. These things are incredibly serious fans, and Dell even puts a warning to that effect on the front panel that if you stick a finger in that fan, well, you're going to be very sorry that you did that. One particularly nice thing that all of these OptiPlex series machines I collected happen to have in place is the optional PS2 set of input connectors, as well as a second serial port. This actually fills up a vacant space in the expansion bus. It does prevent you from using one of the expansion slots, but I find it far nicer to have the actual real PS2 ports. And these are not merely a USB emulation of PS2 and serial. They actually connect to a special header on the motherboard that in turn most probably goes to the low pin count I/O controller. This one is an OptiPlex 760, and one thing I did not know about these machines is that they have external serial ATA connectors on them. That is definitely very interesting. Kind of surprised to see that on a more conservative, business-oriented machine such as these. That one's the most stripped one of the bunch. I'll put a power supply in it just to see what it does. These two are actually pretty much complete. Let's see, I gotta get this turned around the right way so I can pop it open. This one is a 3 GHz Core 2 Duo E8400. It's easily the star of the bunch with 4 GB of DDR2 memory and a Radeon 3450 graphics adapter. I don't think this machine has got a hard drive in it, however. No, it does not, but again, they left me the mounting bracket for one of them. There's an ATI Radeon graphics card in there, as previously mentioned. 4 GB of DDR2. It would have been nice if those modules were higher density than 1 GB, but hey, you can't complain for 10 bucks. And really, 4 GB in a machine like this is more than enough memory for an awful lot of things. The video card appears to be Dell factory stock, as there is the blanking plug over the integrated graphics connector. That does not, however, render the integrated graphics non-functional. If you were to remove this add-in card, the integrated graphics adapter would spring back to life and start working. There you can see the USB, not the USB, the PS2 and serial ports going into their special header connector on the motherboard. This machine does not have a floppy drive in it. There's the 34-pin connector. No floppy drive up there. So I'll go ahead and put the side cover back on this one. This is another OptiPlex 760. I believe they all have at least a DVD-ROM in them, paired with a CD writer, but one of them may have a DVD burner in it as well. I'm not sure. We'll go ahead and take a look at this last one here. This is the only one to have a hard drive. It only has 1 GB of memory, but again, that's enough for a lot of things, though not the Windows Vista that the certificate of authenticity on the top is for. This machine also has an add-on graphics card, and curiously, it has a red circuit board. Now, it was my understanding that when an ATI graphics adapter is delivered on a red circuit board, not only was it probably manufactured by AMD or ATI, it was also a retail card, and yet very clearly, this machine also shipped with an add-on graphics card that I would assume was probably installed by Dell. I'm also making the assumption that no one subsequently upgraded it, but with the DMS59 dual link connector being something that Dell was one of only a few people to use, I'd say it's a pretty safe bet that that is a stock graphics card delivered as an option with this system from Dell. 512 megabytes of DDR2 5300 memory. No floppy drive in this one, only the little OptiPlex GX620 and the most stripped machine of the bunch actually have floppy drives in them. I'll probably add floppy drives if these machines actually end up working, or can be made to work like they should. I have tested none of them yet. Let's see what else there is in here. Slide that on down. A bag full of random goodies. A couple of more hard drives. 1.2 gigabyte, 20 gigabyte. It'll be interesting to see if there's anything on those, if they actually work. And then, to go with the twist lock plugs, $1 a piece, outlets, twist lock outlets. You can plug those plugs into again. Those will definitely come in handy for some kind of a project here in the garage. hopefully I can put them to some kind of good use. The guy who was selling those was actually selling the junction boxes with them. Don't know what I might do with those, but I've got them. And then, as proof that you will find anything there, although I am not a major fan of using these to organize cables in computers, there are certainly times when I do want to have them, and for $1 a box, I thought that was pretty hard to argue with. And finally, the piece that I am probably the most interested in and totally geared up about. This is a compact Deskpro 286E model computer. This was sitting out on the flea market grounds. An old man was watching over it along with a number of other things that he had for sale. I looked at it, I stooped down to get a closer look and see why the cover appeared to be loose. Someone took all the cover screws out of it, but that shouldn't be a big deal to put them back. He had it marked $10, and when I looked up at him, he said, "Are you interested in that?" I said, "Yes, sir, I am." He said, "Take it." So I did. The thing that's really the most amazing about this, not only is the exterior in remarkably good condition, I mean, this hasn't yellowed at all. The interior is unbelievably clean on this machine. I don't know if the old man owned it from the time it was new, or what the story is, or if by some chance maybe somebody never happened to use it. But take a look at how clean this case and motherboard are. This is just unreal. I can't imagine that this machine was never operated, but the lack of any telltale dust on anything, even inside the power supply, there's really none to speak of. And looking back here on the power supply fan, which is a very high quality Panaflow DC brushless motor, you can see that there really is no dust on this. But it must have been used because someone bothered to mark the connection locations for the monitor and the printer, at least. I don't know why they did that when it's got a picture of a printer right there and a picture of a monitor down here, but that's people for you. I just don't know. This is definitely a machine about which there will be a video, because I just can't wait to get some proper case screws in there, power this thing up, and see what it does. See if it's actually got some truly vintage software on it, maybe some data files and stuff that suggest what it was once used for. But those, folks, are all of my finds from the 2013 Peoria Area Amateur Radio Club Superfest Hamfest. The fan is not one of those finds. I will probably be talking about that fan for those of you who are fans, myself included, of course, in a future video. Suffice it to say, for now, that thing is a seriously powerful window fan. It's pretty crazy. But I digress. Thank you for watching this video, and feel free to leave a comment if you have one.